I'll be calling all the speakers in the dais, sir. Can I? Mr. Sudhi, sir, can I call all the speakers in the dais?
Please proceed.
Thank you. We have speakers Mr. Vinod Chippalakatti on the stage, please. The President SEBU, Seatum Electronics Limited, on the dais, please. Let's welcome them. Thank you. And we have Kishtiji Kandelwal, the co-founder and the Chief Technology Officer, on the dais, please. We have Tanvir Ahmed, CTO, the Digantara, on the dais, please. We have Piyush Dhanundial, the GM India and the Chief of Staff, Space Mission Company Private Limited, on the dais. And we have Satyam Kushwaha, retired director, the Indian Space Association, on the dais, please. Over to you, Mr. Sudhi, sir.
Thank you very much. Before starting the session, I seek pardon for the people who are expecting me physically over there. You must have heard of a historical private launch today. It's the beginning of the new space, I should say. I think it is incidentally the Bangalore Tech Expo, which is the aerospace hub, witnessing a historical private launch, first private launch, which probably Indian space started way back 60 years back. The history is repeating, where the pace what it was expected is maybe 10 times or 100 times. With a note that a successful launch has happened, Honorable Minister of State was here personally to witness the launch, and the entire space community sitting, including the people sitting over there, including the ISRO, including InSpace, is proud of this moment. I just take the what you call placed on the record such a kind of historical launch by a able startup coming forward. With that note, I just would invite all the speakers, all the panelists, very eminent panelists, very diversified panelists are there. Some are corporate, some are startups, some association, budding startup, very successful startup like Pixel on the board. I think thanks for choosing such kind of panelists, maybe for spending maybe 45 to 50 minutes of time. How actually the space sector is taking shape in the new era post reforms. So probably I think I just wanted to spend some time on the topic with a PowerPoint presentation, if it is permitted. Somebody would confirm to me whether the presentation is visible. Can somebody confirm to me?
Yes, sir, it's very much visible.
Yeah. Probably the foundation was started because the topic is Indian space. The founder, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, with a lot of dreams, started in 1960s or even before 60s in his own home, ultimately converted into a physical research laboratories. He dreamt to have a fruitful space ecosystem in India. He sought the support of Homi J. Baba, who at that time who was the mentor, and his gurus like C.V. Raman Bhatnagar, and started the show taking the lead of magnetic equator in Tumba. The entire space program started in a church, basically taking the support of the local fishermen community. In 1962, the INCOS Park started within the premises of Department of Atomic Energy, which later got converted into Indian Space Research Organization. After the pioneers, after the Dr. Sarabhai, the poverty pioneers like Satish Dhawan, they took over the baton and started moving into the formal space research, innovation or research and the Department of Space. The aspirations were a small rocket. Even Abdul J. Kalam sir was sitting and Arva Mudun, they were assembling a small rocket. Ultimately, they could make it up with the help of international cooperation from Nikkei Apache USA. At that time, they believed in mass communication because the space applications should reach to the en mass public, because that is way keeping in picture the huge population within India. This is the way they believed. Now the new trends have started. Now from there we have taken a jump. The space is self-reliant in various aspects like navigation, like earth observation, like communication. We have high throughput satellites which can compete with the world markets. We have largest fleet of earth observation satellites covering modern radar imaging and let us say all sophisticated let us say remote sensing applications. We have our own local navigation system constellation to cover almost 1500 kilometers around the India to cover our own let us say navigation applications. That was the past. Now present is now government is looking for expanding the space both commercially as well as technologically. They realized that unless otherwise we add some more resources to the government sector, it's not possible. So that is why the gates were opened. The private sector players are now entering into the space domain for multiplying these things, whatever we have done. And ISRO continue to be a mentor, a philosopher, a friend to take handful of the new industries, budding startups to energize the systems. That's how the new space is going to be evolved, started evolution. Already we started reaping the benefits within 2 years of announcement of the reforms. And future it could be many players we wanted to see, be it human space missions, space tourism, manufacturing in space, high throughput satellites, new generation satellites, even including the science missions. If you see the global space economy, how it is going, recently 2021, let us say Bryce report says around 386 billion. But of course, in that one, they were estimating the India's share was 2%. But I really, because a lot of discussions are there, how actually this 2%, whether it is exactly the estimation or you are taking the cost of living into the assessment for assessing the actual percentage. Leave about that one. But there is much scope to grow globally and locally. Earlier, the government used to be the entire, let us say, producer of the entire applications as well as the manufacturing concern. Now, the prime vendors who are called partners coming into the space. Global players are very eagerly looking at the opportunities for making investments in within India. Startups are amazingly doing well. The private firms slowly growing from a subcontractor to tier one contractor and solution provider, turnkey contractors. Investments are going on. Very many investors are looking space as one of the let us say major area for investment. And NCL, which is formed again to a couple of 1 or 2 years back, it is taking a reshape how actually the entire commercialization activities of space can be leveraged to generating revenue and occupying the commercial let us say seats of the gaps. And in space is the mechanism for promoting, regulating, and hand-holding non-governmental entities, including the private sector. So entire a rethinking, a reshape is happening. And the space policy is on, a lot of consultations were went on, and it is in the final stages of approval process. The SATCOM, yes, it is low-Earth satellites. This is taking a reshape recently. You would have seen OneWeb has come to us. We have launched 36 satellites. Another mission is due in 1 or 2 months time. So we are also taking part in the establishing the SATCOM network in the low-Earth orbits, and lot many things we have to do. And ISRO, while what ISRO does, ISRO is taking the lead in developing the new launcher vehicles, developing new technologies, capacity building, and establishing the let us say facilities at different places, because space is a very risky and long lead and high investment let us say sector, where you have to extend some kind of support to the private industries as well as startups. So ISRO is taking big brother approach to extend helping hands and to extend support to the private sector. That's how the system is going on. But of course, if we see the launches at par, ISRO also has developed its SSLV today. The launch of Agni, the Vikram yes by Agni by Skyroot is a promising. And due course, Agnikul is going to launch its own suborbital flight soon. The way they are accelerating their works, I'm sure that there is no much time for them to reach there is no the time of reaching there. There's the next launch called 500 kg. It's not very far. It's not very far. And pillars of our strategy could be a strong heritage we have, and we have a lot of good ecosystem. Retired, let's say, young youth is there, which is less than 35 years, and we have a very good supply chains and value chains exist, mentorships exist. I don't think it is very impossible for us to enter into the new technologies. But at the same time, we have to see maybe 10 to 20 years ahead how actually the space, let us say, technology is going to take shape. What are all the important areas where ISRO has to concentrate so that these new technologies will develop for various applications. So these technologies have been identified by ISRO, and slowly the research has been started in multiple folds, both within the organization, even between the academia, and even some industries are coming forward for joint development of these critical technologies. The doors are open. So today, if you see the Indian industry participation for building the subsystems is almost 80 to 90% in the launch vehicle area. But even of course, in the electronics area, maybe I should say that 50 to 60% Indian industry is competing. Still, there is ample scope for reducing our import, let us say, component and increase the indigenization. This is the one you have seen small satellite launch market. It is picking up day by day. Even corporates are coming for launching the small satellites with small satellites using the small satellite launchers, even bigger launchers. The day is not very far that entire small satellite launch market is going to be taken over completely by the private industry. The space company, as I was telling, we have very ambitious target to reach from 2% to immediately 9 to 10% in another 10 years of time, or even less than that one. So we have to tighten our belts, and we have to see how best we can accomplish this particular Herculean task and Herculean target. So very many challenges are ahead. uh, if you see the boosting of Indian space industry, a lot many channels are open in terms of investments, in terms of FDIs, in terms of, let us say, joint ventures, in terms of clusters. There were a lot of debates, and the collaborations are happening in both international and national scene. I think this is the point of inflection. Maybe in a couple of years, we could see exactly a leap change in the space sector, and we are going to witness that soon. And since the Bangalore is almost considered as aerospace and space hub, Bangalore and Karnataka has got ample opportunities for grabbing this particular situation. Probably, I think days are not very far to see the best to happen soon. And most of the startups, you call Pixel, you call let's say Digantara, you call other Sat Show, they have Bangalore as base hub. I think these boys are going to do wonders. We are going to be the let's say people to witness as well as cherish the growth of the space industries in India, especially in Karnataka, and more especially in the Bangalore. I think I can stop this my presentation probably. I think after I leave it to the panels to discuss more and listen to their perspective. May I call now Satyam, because ISPA is the pivotal agency for the entire space industry to get integrated with the government, as well as the mechanism that is existing either in terms of agencies, etc. Satyam, my question to you is probably, I think, what is the role to play by different stakeholders to make the space a sustainable business? And one more question to you is, what are the enabling factors for the Indian space companies to increase their share to the global share market? Then these are all the two important points we have to concentrate as an ISPA. What is your perspective? I request you to put it within 5 to 6 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you. And again, heartiest congratulations to Skyroot, who's our esteemed member, on the successful launch. I would like to cover this subject under various headings in terms of regulatory, finance, business opportunities, and enablement. First of all, from a regulatory perspective, what I would like to point out is that there are two very much awaited documents. One is the space policy and the space activities bill, which is much awaited by the industry to give them a long-term perspective about what is required and how things are supposed to flow in times to come, because based on that, a lot of investments can be planned. Thereafter, I think that we need to have a much more empirical, data-based analysis of what we are out to do, especially the Indian private sector, how it can be enabled, what kind of manufacturing and products that we can come out with. And based on that, then we need to take a comprehensive look at the entire regulatory mechanism, which includes all types of custom duties, import, exports, as well as taxations, so that it can be given the right fillip. It's not about just one ministry approach, but it is a whole of nation and a whole of government approach that has to be applied to support such endeavors. Further, what's also important is that we identify the countries who would be the recipients of Indian technology, and we need to understand their regulatory space and how our government can engage with them to create a favorable situation is something that's another thing that the government should consider looking at. Coming to the enablement part, I think the Indian diplomatic missions abroad, they can play a very important pivotal role in talking about our technology and the capabilities that we bring to the table, and how we can enable their economy and be a co-traveler for their growth using our private sector capability. I think that is something which we request the government to consider. The next important point is that we need to create our own capabilities in terms of tools, testing, rigs, device, all those kind of things, electronic manufacturing capabilities. So they need to be handled in a much more comprehensive manner than what we are seeing today, and maybe establishment of some dedicated space technology parks could look in that direction. Then I think what's most important for the, if we look at the entire space spectrum market, we have the launch vehicle segment and the satellite segment, and then we have the ground segment, and then we have the services segment, which comprises of both the communication side as well as all geospatial activities and national security applications. Now, India has been a very strong IT power, and especially Bangalore has been the hub center of this capability. So I think there is a requirement to have a huge enablement for this sector, especially in the services side, for which I feel that Niti Aayog or institutions like them can become the core drivers to collect the government demand in terms of geospatial activities, SSA, any kind of activity where the Indian space companies can support it. There has to be one single point convergence to understand what is the demand, so that based on that, then the startups can plan where and whom to target. I think this is something which is very important and needs to be done. Further, what I would like to bring out is a very interesting aspect that has happened in the Modi 2.0 system. And that is that Dr. Jitendra Singh, who is the Minister of State, is also now handling Department of Science and Technology, which means the Survey of India. Now, survey data with space-based data has a huge disruption to play, and this is another area where our service industry and especially the startups can play a major role in unlocking the value of that data and taking it for the benefit of both the common man as well as for industrial and national security applications. The next thing that I would like to bring out is the financial dimension, and that is something which is the bedrock of supporting a strong industry. We need to look at how the quantity as well as the size of the initial investments that take place in deep tech and space can be increased. The next aspect is especially with respect to the defense space initiatives, which were recently launched by the Honorable Prime Minister on the 19th of October at DEF Expo in Ahmedabad. Now, ISPA had been very, very closely engaged in supporting the Ministry of Defense to curate them and come out with those 75 challenges. Now, very important aspect is that it's a peculiar nature of space that it has a long gestation period. It requires heavy capital. So the standard VC models do not work here, because after a certain time, especially after level A, the amount of funding, amount of the equity ownership that is there with the founders, it goes below a certain level, which is not desirable from a strategic perspective, because this is a strategic sector which will support both civilian applications and national strategic applications. So we need to look at how a special model can be built on this. The VCs are also requested to take a view in which they will support India's capabilities and Indian grown VCs. Also, could we look at creating of say a sovereign space infrastructure development fund, or instruments of those nature which can support the space industry in this endeavor? I think that is something very, very important to consider. And above all, nothing can happen without the human beings. Being a fighter pilot myself, and the man, it's what's the man behind the machine that matters, and that's what we need to do to a space capability. We have huge amount of veterans as well as scientists who have contributed immensely to nation building through the space industry and the IT industry. Now, it's important to bring them into a common pool where the industry can reach out to them and seek their support to refine the quality of their technology and take it to the next level. And further, this would also mean that their mentorship is also going to be very important in supporting the academia industry relationships by guiding them and creating the next generation and the next generation in the right direction. These are my initial comments. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now you brought out very important point, because basically in the space, majority of the users are, let us say, government, and of course in the communication front, the users are very clear. But the space situational awareness, which is now budding area where you have to pick up more, and defense. Lot of opportunities are there. You brought very important points. Probably I think those things that the policymakers and industries also should look into. May I now call Piyush? Your company has very plans in the space domain. How can you make the space research affordable? Because now research is not a proprietary to government, and industry, academia, everybody have to carry out the research. So, what are the challenges you faced or facing to release the systems from lab to market? I just please spend 5 to 6 minutes on this, Piyush.
Thank you, sir. That's a great question. Let me start by showing a little gratitude to BTS for bringing us together. What a day for all of us to be in the same room. Skyroot doing their launch this morning. To the first part of the comment that you made, sir, around the multiple things that we are attempting to do in the space domain. And the origin story around that is essentially around built around the ambition of enabling factories in space. And as soon as you start to scratch the surface on that, you realize that factories can only be enabled by the ability to go from point A to point B, which is logistics. And when you start to delve deeper into that problem, the problem of going from point A to point B, you realize there are multiple dual use cases that you can potentially support. Some of which are transport, the ability to go from Earth to anywhere in space. The second would be orbit side operations, which could include refueling, repairs, deorbiting, tugging, proximity ops. And a third vertical would be in service of science, to be able to go farther and for lower cost than what's possible today. So while most of the ecosystem was juggling with the first mile, which is the ability to go from Earth to LEO, for example, we, in conversation with our customers, started to focus on the entire customer journey, including the first mile, but ending at the last mile. and achieving our customers' objectives. And to that end, we created an OTV, an orbital transfer vehicle called Optimus. Now, what Optimus does is it simplifies the conversation with our customers to three very basic questions. How big is your satellite? When do you want to go up there? And what orbital parameters do you want to get inserted into? And the simplification of this entire conversation is what we call peace of mind space logistics. And an extension of that is an earth analogy would potentially be something like a FedEx. You take a package to FedEx, you don't care about the truck, the fuel, the engine, the tires, or the number of hops your package is going to take to get from point A to point B. You just hand the package over and you get notified when it reaches, right? So that's basically the multiple things that so you refer to in your initial comment as to our ambitions so far as space goes. The second part of your question was around affordability, and I'm going to latch on to three operative words in that question: affordability, uh, research, and space. So affordability potentially is something that everybody wants, right? You wouldn't really want to engage in an activity that you can't afford to. Um, Research by by design, or by uh, uh, by idealistically should basically be unbounded, but such is the reality of life. It needs to be balanced with the realities on the ground. And when you add space and research together as one term, that's another hairy beast altogether. So how we approach and view affordability is across two tracks. One would be time and cost, which is simple, because when you attack those two problems, you get to a place where affordability is the outcome. And the second would be for us to be able to focus on problem statements that essentially are our strengths and partner on everything else that's not our strength. Uh, so, a couple of levers that we have in achieving affordability to that end is, from my background in IT, we've brought in a couple of practices from IT, such as iterative development. So that helps. Then, from a supply chain standpoint, you'd want to make sure that you continue to sharpen your supply chain, and you keep attacking the lead times. And uh, then the modular architecture that we build allows us to build stuff out faster, for us to put things together very quickly. And then the fourth pillar in that entire strategy would be to look long and hard at the components that we hope to put into our spacecraft, and the cost benefit analysis around putting space grade stuff, because space grade, as soon as you add space grade, there is time and cost, time and cost, uh, you know uh, outcomes around that, right? So you've got to balance the whole thing out. So that's what we are attempting to do. And yeah, it's still early days, but we hoping to solve a few of these hairy problems with this approach.
Good, good. Thank you, Pish. I think you brought it one affordability, which is a very important thing. Space, you call it as how that is a vicious circle. If you make it more affordable, more number of more amount of business you can generate. If you more business, more profit, again affordability will come down. It's a vicious circle. Probably the commercial front, the reusability, the affordability, the miniaturization. These are all the important areas which comes for the research. I'll go to Tanvir Sen when you are talking about the research. These guys, they are doing amazing thing in the space situational awareness. Even today also, major researchers are still looking at them for their success. Tanvir, can you share the space situational awareness is a very specialized area. Why did you choose this domain first of all? and what are the challenges you faced? Because it's a very typical domain. I think you have to openly share your experience.
Yeah. Before I start, how many of you are from space here? Okay. 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 So I'll keep it. I'll make sure there are no jargons here. So to start, I'll first introduce myself. I'm Tanveer, co-founder and CTO at Digantara. Digantara is a space situational awareness company building an infrastructure layer for space ecosystem. I think the first question was, how did I land up here? So when we were students in universities, ISRO used to run a student satellite program wherein students were encouraged to build satellites and payload, and ISRO would launch it for them. And when I was working in that program, one of the satellites which was launched before by a group of students was lost due to a debris hit, and that's when the problem of space debris, in a sense, space situational awareness, was introduced to me. It was very intriguing, and the assumption that space is infinite was shattered. We knew that there are almost 1 million objects in space that can kill satellites, and we don't know where they are. We don't know their positions. That's how it started. Digantara started as a company that would track space objects, build hardware sensors for tracking of space objects. But as we went through this journey, we realized the problem is much more complex. Just gathering the data or tracking of satellites will not solve the issue, but rather an end-to-end solution is needed. Space situational awareness is a niche in the entire space domain, which has a lot of intricate moving parts and many of them. So that's where a specialized solution that focus on space situational awareness and seamlessly integrates with the existing space ecosystem was needed. That's where our solution is like Google Maps for space, where it's one platform where you can understand what's happening in space and utilize the data and the services to conduct any space operations. It's in a way similar to air traffic management, but 100 times complex. The most challenging part here is how the sustainability is coming in space. Usually, whenever a market is created, the industry explores the domain and the industry makes some mistakes. There are some bad actors, and that's when regulations kick in. And we can figure out, hey, look, I think this is the best way of going about it. It's like there are rules on road when you drive car right now. It didn't exist. Someone started driving cars, accidents happen, and government stepped in and said, hey, look, you should go in this particular direction. There should be signals. There should be emission control, right? That happened. But the cycle, a market is created, industry exploits it, then the regulation is created. That is a very risky approach for space, because once an accident happens in space, it stays there. It does not only affects the parties who are involved in that accident, but it affects each and every stakeholder of space. If a satellite collision happens in space, the debris remain there. It goes and has the potential to destroy other satellites. So we, as Digantara, had to create a sustainability business case without sustainability regulation. This is something that is seen only in space industry. In every other industry that you see, there is regulations first, only then business cases come in. So navigating through this space without regulations and creating a business case for sustainability was the most challenging thing. But I think space operators realize that there are 1 million objects in space, hardly 5% is tracked, and with that itself, we have almost 500 million conjunction warnings every month. And it's very soon will reach a point where the orbit capacity will reach to a stage where all the collisions may not it may not be as worse, as you'll not be able to operate satellites, but you have to maneuver them or move them so often to avoid collision that it will greatly hamper your core objectives. That's where the complete ecosystem is investing in SSA building solution and adopting it without regulations. I think that's a really
Good.
interesting how it has come out.
Thank you, Tanvir. I think this is the area where many startups are not aware, probably because of several reasons. The data is available and it creates a huge business, especially not only in India, outside also. So one has to listen from Tanvir kind of people and start earning and start learning the things, how to go into the commercial aspects. Now I move to our Vinod from Centum. What are the potential areas and opportunities in the global space sector? Because you are a multinational company, you see a lot of attend seminars elsewhere. How actually, what are the prospects of Indian industry to capture the foreign markets, global markets, and global industries? They are looking for a lot of opportunities in India. How you see the entire perspective, Vinod? Can you just share within 5 to 6 minutes?
Sure, sir. Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this panel. It's also important that I initially spend few seconds to explain where we come from. Centum Electronics has been a leading electronics industry, design, engineering, manufacturing partner for space, mostly ISRO, and of late to defense space for the last 22 years. And it has been a very wonderful, technologically challenging, sometimes frustrating, patience testing journey. And it's very important that this characteristic feature of what the journey is to be compared vis-a-vis how it is elsewhere in the world. And we also are an export oriented company, meaning 85% of our products go outside of India, mostly to about 17 to 20 different countries. And 50% of that is in the high reliability defense aerospace space sector. So the question, Sudhir sir, you asked is quite relevant. It's easy for us to explain the dynamics that has been there in exporting. First of all, there is a strong myth that it's very easy to export once you are ready with a product or a service. The answer is not really so, because especially the space has been quite parochial because of the following reasons. One, I think the volumes are quite low. Sometimes you end up building 1, 2, or 3 max kind of system. So it's very low volume, high reliability, high risk, high value. And because of these nature, the industry, every space end user would prefer to get those things done by the local ecosystem, because it's easy to access, go through an R&D mode, mature to a reliable product. More importantly, the access. So there is no price pressure, because of which generally the outsourcing happens beyond their own country. But I think the scenario is definitely changing with the advent of new space coming up, which is quite price sensitive, which is speed sensitive. I think the boundaries are expanding, and today we see a lot of business transaction or business opportunity related discussions happening between multiple countries, and India is no different. So in the last few couple of years, we clearly see a change happening, and that too with the opening up of the space sector. The overall awareness as to what is the capability of the Indian industry, thanks to the grooming by the ISRO, is coming up. And then I think that is really offering tremendous amount of opportunities. And I think like any other sector, India is quite innovative. India is a young industry ecosystem, which once appreciates the fact that something has to be cost effective, something has to be technologically innovative. I think we go behind it and then try and make it happen. I think that's something which is the scenario in the last couple of years. And if you look at again the space is an upstream and a downstream. Downstream is clearly an asset light sector where you just need few brilliant brains and few laptops and a good conducive atmosphere. whereas the upstream has been much challenging. So with new space, even the upstream opportunities are increasing. Now the question is, where are the opportunities? What are the opportunities that one is seeing? Because we read in many reports that the overall space ecosystem could be reaching $1 trillion by 2040. But where is it likely to come from? We all are very clearly seeing the popular LEOCOM sats getting into numbers, getting into slowly, some amount of initial successes, which is indicating that they are going to stay and they're going to cover the internet on every square inch of the earth kind of an objective. So LEOCOM sats clearly are one set of opportunities, but LEOCOM sats require huge amount of ground infrastructure, networking, all of that. So it has not been everybody's cup of tea so far. It has been mostly heavy investment intensive sector, and hence it has been restricted to few of the players. You can see OneWeb, today's Telesat, who is also working on gathering their funds and making the Telesat successful. You see SpaceX getting into these kind of things. So LEOCOMSat is clearly there up there, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. What does that mean? Where else is the opportunity? I think the Earth observation with multiple applications is also gaining equally important, a sector where good amount of business can be sought. Especially when we say about Earth observation, could be electro-optics imaging, hyperspectral imaging, synthetic aperture radar. Also in the areas of AIS, automatic identification systems, electronic warfare. So there is a very good culmination of civilian application, societal application, strategic application, dual application kind of an environment where we see low Earth orbit, Earth observation related platforms are gaining popularity. And this is something which is also another area where if spectrum of industries who have specialized in certain areas are seeing good amount of opportunities. So not to speak about the downstream. Downstream, I think the whole globe is open. You innovate, you bring out a new product, it is accessible, available for the rest of the globe. So I think 2, 3 points just to summarize, sir, what you said. One, it's not very easy to say export is a done deal. It's not, but thanks to the atmosphere and the policies and the conducive environment that India is creating and the overall new space ecosystem is demanding, it's easing out. That is point number one. Point number two, I think LEOCOM SAT is one big deal, but I think there are multiple applications which are significantly emerging, which gives rise to opportunities for multispectral, multi-sized industries. So that is second. And I think the last one is downstream, which is an open playground. Anybody with innovative idea brings up any innovative application using the space, they have a lot of opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Vinod. So it's a really a very well thought, let's say, comment by you, because obviously the downstream is open without much investments. It will generate a good business, but obviously upstream hardware always risky. You would have burned your fingers many times and learned stories, but that is also very important because 1 unit of upstream in generating 100 units of downstream. Okay, so that is the important. It's all everything important. So now we move to because Pixel. Pixel is going to be one startup has created a story today, and Pixel is going to create another story soon. Maybe on the next probably couple of days, they are launching their own satellite. First startup launching a commercial satellite. So Kshitish, you are first startup launching the commercial satellite, if I am correct. Probably, I think I have not seen any startup. So will you share your experiences of getting through the process of approvals, regulatory framework? I think all these things I need not to spell about again. It should be a story for your followers or for your younger brothers. Please complete because I expect to another 5 to 6 minutes. We have to close our show. I request you to be brief.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sudhir ji. So I think for any startup in this ecosystem to get to a point where they can launch, there are four basic things that you need to solve, right? One primarily is access to infrastructure. Basically, you cannot put all the money to build a TVAC setup, or you cannot put all the money to build the right kind of testing setup, manufacturing setup on your own in the first go. So as you start out, you definitely require that access to infrastructure, and working with existing companies with ISRO to access that testing infrastructure has been a very big part of this play for us. Second, I would say, is access to funding. And you need to have, I mean, the easiest and not the easiest, but the cleanest access to funding is customer based funding. You don't lose equity, you have, a balance sheet is green and everything, all of that. But as you start out in this industry, like Satyamji mentioned, the cycles are so long, the sales cycles are so long, the gestation period for any startup is so long that you have to access VC funding, you have to access grants, and that's another place where the government comes in. Third piece for any startup, ideally, in this segment is talent, finding access to the right kind of talent pool. And that again becomes tricky because there are not many organizations but ISRO that have done the kind of things that we wanted to do. Lastly, and most importantly, it's ease in regulation that allows you to do all of this, whether it's importing some component that we cannot find in India, or whether it's ensuring that, if we are not launching here, we're launching somewhere else, making sure the satellite goes out, making sure the data is going out properly to customers who may not be Indian. So overall, I think over the last 3 years, and especially the last 1.5 year, with the finance minister's announcement that came back in 2021, around that time, we've seen a big push from the Indian government, especially through InSpace, to interact with startups, to interact with companies like ourselves, help us in ensuring that we have the right kind of licenses, help us in finding the right testing facilities. We took our satellite, tested it for RF in in SAC, Ahmedabad. We previously had also access to ISRO facilities in URSC to test the satellite. We worked with companies like Centum for doing thermo vacuum testing of the satellite. So one, that access to the ISRO facilities has been very good. And in that sense, the regulatory environment easing up or allowing for companies like ourselves to grow is very important. More clarity here is to be expected with the policy, uh, basically turning into a bill. But from our end, I think we have been beneficiaries over the last 2 years, which a lot of companies 5-6 years were not able to do. It's easy to have an idea in this space. People have been having ideas regarding building stuff for space for how many ever years, but to be able to convert that idea into reality, there is a step-by-step execution plan that you have to come up with. And as you go towards that execution plan, all these pieces need to fit together. So I hope that answers your question about how we have gone through the regulatory processes. And we are optimistic. The way we've seen things grow over the last year or so, we are very optimistic on how things will be in the coming years regarding operating the satellites themselves, regarding being able to sell the data, a whole host of things. So that's it.
Thank you, Kshitish. I think you made your points very clear. Probably, I think, except one, which is regulatory, the policy matters and incentivization, except that one, probably within a short span of time, Indian space industry and startups ecosystem has got a very positive response from government as well as ISRO, including sharing of the facilities, seed funding, encouragement, mentorship, in space, even though policies are pending, taking some kind of let us say let us say framework to enable the private sector to penetrate more into the space sector. I think we had a very fruitful panel discussion. Even though the time is short, the speakers have put forth the perspective like an essence. Okay, 1 kg thing is in one drop. I hope we are well within the time. I thank again all the panelists for sparing their time and sharing their experience. It is only just a phase. Probably people, listeners and budding starters, they can interact more with these experienced guys and get to know more for their own benefit. Thank you. I thank again BTS organizing people for giving an opportunity. Thank you. Over to the organizers.
anybody have questions, please. You get the mic.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you. My name is Saurav and I'm a lawyer. I had three questions. I'll put it very briefly. First question is, when we were seeing the forecast of space economy in India, I didn't see anything about space mining within it. Number two would be like in the US, where we are seeing where idols are becoming rivals. NASA, where once the big brother of SpaceX, Blue Origin, now they all are playing on a level playing field. When do we see that situation arriving in India? And last question is going to be, how are India's space exports going to look in comparison to Russia and China? I'm not talking about the US, but I see China is capturing a good space in this sector as well. I'd love to hear your comments. Thank you.
Can start with the last question first, which is comparisons with other space economies. Honestly, China's done a really good job over the last couple decades of, completely the industry has skyrocketed basically, and you see a lot of startups. You see government working hand in hand with companies. You've seen this spectacularly fail in other countries as well. ESA right now is also trying to get on track. You've seen the Japanese JAXA agency do a lot of research work. So in general, we do have a good roadmap in terms of how we are going to work in this industry with the government and with the Indian Space Research Organization. As startups, we have the ability to work on slightly riskier idea without risking taxpayer money. And that allows us to work hand in hand with the government, where ISRO handholds companies like ourselves to essentially take us to projects that are also in its roadmap. The Indian space program is far ahead of others in a few aspects. They need to be capitalized on. And there are other aspects where we have lagged behind in the last few years, and that is where the Indian space program is going ahead. So overall, we are in a position where it's very difficult to compare apples to apples. But there are some capabilities that we have that are beyond others, and we are capitalizing on them. NISAR is a very good example of this, where ISRO and NASA are working together to essentially build synthetic aperture radar capability, which is beyond what's there otherwise. So it's a mix, I would say. But if you had to compare, yes, we have a bit of catching up to do. And as an industry, we are probably in the best position to do so at this moment.
May I just make an addition to what he just mentioned? We need to first understand what's happened in the last 2-3 years. What's happened is basically that a slew of reforms have been unleashed by the Honorable Prime Minister to realize the full economic potential of the space capability and make India, like a space superpower. The way IT happened to India, he has a vision to do something like that. Now, it doesn't happen overnight. There is a gestation period because technologies need to be developed, and thereafter they need to find markets and then become a part of the global ecosystem and then start making an impact the way you are looking at. Now, as far as the Indian system is there, that it was initially very ISRO-centric because ISRO led, ISRO defined, and this transition that is happening, it is impacting both the government sector as well as the private sector. New models are getting developed. Now this field is very open. Policy is yet to come. So I guess when the policy starts coming in, people have more definitive understanding of what's the canvas and the roadmap like, and then they'll come out with much more interest in putting money here and supporting more companies. So I think we must give it some time. Yes, some of our young startups as well as matured companies are doing fairly fine. So they are the real spearheads, and he would lead the way to put our flag at the right places. But I think the real mass that you look at would follow once more clarity comes in terms of policy, financial support, and when these things settle down. Also, with the private the technologies which are being developed by our own companies, once they see that full life cycle of successful completion, and people start believing in this much more, then I think it will get more traction than what we see today.
I think I'll just summarize by saying first they will coexist, then they will complement, then they will compete. I think competing we have some time to come, but I think right now we are going from a coexisting to a complementing phase.
I believe the first part of your question was around mining, space mining, right? So about that, it's a very new, it's niche right now. Very few companies around the world are attempting it, or even in any state of TRL level in order to even do a technical demonstrator. So there isn't a lot of good data to size that market yet, which is why you probably don't see it in reports. OTVs, for example, the stuff that I work on, weren't in any of the reports 4 years back. So this is a constantly shifting landscape of how that data is read, how that data is projected. Mining is in very early stages, but you should see that change in the next couple of years.
So, what of the possibility of having nuclear-powered satellite launch vehicles? One. And what about we are launching artificial satellites? What about launching artificial planets somewhere in space? We have only new solar panels to generate electricity for the whole of planet for the entire mankind. Will using either nuclear fusion reaction of the sun will replicate somewhere an artificial planet somewhere in space. Then seamless transmission to Earth. One. Then solar. No, two aspects from solar energy, that is using heat, that is solar power, or nuclear fusion reaction of the solar energy that will replicate somewhere in space and transmit to Earth for entire mankind. We'll eliminate all fossil fuels. That's one possibility. What about nuclear energy-based satellite launches? What are the challenges? Then everybody is launching satellites. Not even this private bodies are coming. What about space debris? What will be the challenges? Space debris, how to remove that space debris? So many issues. How we can achieve 1 million miles per hour speed for any artificial satellite? These various aspects.
So just talking about nuclear technology and the previous question specifically on mining, there are technologies that people have come up with, but at a POC level, nuclear for satellites has been in use since the 70s. You have both the Voyager mission running on PU 238 batteries. So as a source of energy, it has been in use. But reactor-based, fusion-based technologies in space are yet to be deployed at that scale. We are looking at with the Artemis program that NASA is doing, basically setting up a nuclear-based power source on Moon. So that's something that's underway. But again, a lot of things to be demonstrated in the industry. Mining in particular, you had the DART mission recently, where they just struck the surface of an asteroid and tried to understand what the composition of the asteroid was. And that itself was millions of dollars. So before we get to regular mining in space, we need to get to a point where we are able to build these technologies, prove that they're feasible, and then prove that they are cheaper or better than the technologies that we use to mine on Earth. The cost of mining on Earth versus cost of mining in space, usage of mined materials in space itself. So lots of things to happen. The next few decades, 20, 30 years will show how that goes. As far as space debris goes, I think you have the expert here.
So I think I'll take the question on space debris. Right now, the biggest problem, there are few companies who are in the process of demonstrating a POC for space debris removal. But the biggest question for them is what will be the business case? Essentially, who will pay it? Who will pay for removing the debris? Right now, it's 2 or 3 countries who are taking a lead, essentially Japan and UK and I think US, I'm not sure. They have contracted their homegrown startups to remove a particular debris that they had created a few years back. But that's there. I mean, what after that? There's no one talking about it. Who will pay for the debris removal? But as far as the technological capability, I think we are getting very close to removing debris.
To add to the point, let us say space debris is going to be a policy matter for all the national space agencies. Whoever creates the debris should take responsibility of removing. So such kind of policies on Dubai Forum, several forums, it has been discussed. Probably as a UN charter, if it comes through, probably it will be responsibility of the national space agencies to remove their debris, unless otherwise it creates unnecessary nuisance in the space. Any more questions is allowed?
So we're running out of the time. And,
Okay,
the
okay.
guests
Again,
are-
once again,
Thank you.
thanks for giving some time, additional time for questions. I think we have done a fairly good job for this session. I thank again all the panelists for sparing that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the panelists here for the wonderful session over here. I would like to call upon Ma'am Vijayalakshmi ma'am on the dais to honor the memento. To the Mr. Satyam Kushwaha, sir. Mr. Piyush, Mr. Vinod, Mr. Kishki, and Mr. Tanveer. I would request everyone to settle down here. In a minute, we'll be starting the next session. I would request everyone to come down, come forward, and to be seated so that we can start the session now. Very good afternoon to everyone and welcome to the session. The session is on ground future tech for aviation. So let's all welcome Mr. Sonu Varghese, the partner, Kindrel India, on the stage, please.
So I'll wait for a couple of minutes for folks to just settle down. We start? Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name, as you would see on the board, is Sonu Verghese. I lead as a partner for Kyndryl, currently managing responsibility for Bangalore International Airport. Now, I also have my colleague and my client, George Phantom, and we have split this into two segments really. Segment one is where I will really talk about the future of airports, and the segment two will have a fireside chat with George to really understand how is that applicable in the airport and in Bangalore airport really. Before I start, if you just step back and see, as most of you know, and you'll wonder, people have been traveling over centuries, right? And in the early days, they was travel by foot, and there would be miles and several days, weeks, and months of travel. As time passed, and you would realize the first innovative design was of a wheel. Now, from there on, and as time passed, there's innovations of travel, and the paradigm of travel really changed. The first real era of aviation was really about when Wright brothers in 1903 got the first motorized airplane. Now, as you would know, the airplane was credited to them as the Wright brothers, and you needed an airport, really, right, to land and take off. And in those days, any piece of land would really be used as a landing zone for airports. Now, if you step back in today's time, and 100 years back, if you look back, the airports have really not changed over time. They actually ferry people and cargo from one place to other place, right? What really has changed is the size of an airport, the intensity of digital innovation that's gone into the airport. And as time progresses, it has kind of got bigger planes, bigger cargo vessels into moving from location A to location B. That's how the real innovation has happened when it comes to the airports. The first airport, if most of you would be aware, was in 1909 in Maryland in US. And just imagine what the airport was used for, to train two pilots by the Wright brothers to actually fly a plane. That was the intent of an airport in those days. From there, fast forward today, you have a mass expanse of airports in any country, city that you speak about. India itself is claiming to have around 200 airports to be modernized as time passes under the new government. From there on, as we see the progress that's happening, airports really are ferrying people from location A to location B. Now, with the new airports design that we see around us, one of the executives that I met, a senior aviation executive, he spoke about a very simple concept of airports. And this I quote for what he said. He said that airports are really moving passengers from one place to other place, right? It's about moving cargo from location A to location B, baggages in and out, and it's about moving the planes in and out. Now, that's a very simplified way to talk about airports, but there's a big integration that goes in the backyard of integrating multiple technologies, multiple systems. And with those integrations, you actually go and achieve a very seamless passenger experience. So it's not as complex. It's kind of very complex, unlike what I heard from this executive. From there on, there are hundreds of ecosystem partners that operate in an airport. It's airlines, it is the AOCC, it's ATC, there's cargo handling systems. There are multiple such integrations that goes into supporting them to run really an airport operations. The airport of today, from there on, has moved to a sustainable and more passenger-friendly environment, and that's the approach that most airports are really staring at. And this is kind of to give a touchless experience with a digital intuitive experience. And that's what I will talk about now in the next couple of minutes. As the airlines are kind of innovating to kind of give an experience to the passenger, airports are also going through a radical change. The airports are now about integrating all these multiple systems and to give a very seamless experience through an intelligent interconnected system. And I'll talk about a couple of them, which are the future outlook of how airports will really look at the way they operate in the near future. One is to be a preferred destination. So today the airports are not just about getting the airplanes and passengers moving in and out. It's trying to be a preferred destination where they will give an experience to the passengers and the people to come to the airport and thereby give them hospitality, dining, education, and those kind of experiences, including workspaces, where you actually get the passengers and people to come to the airport to have their experience. Now, this can really be done by a very close human and technology interface. How do you draw the passengers and the people to the airport for the experience? Number two is around a passenger integration system. In today's airport, it's not a very continual integration between a passenger who walks into the airport and who gets an experience right up to the boarding of the plane. Does the airport really know about who am I and what do I need? And that's where a passenger integration system, where you actually, when the passenger walks into the curbside or the entry to the terminal, the airport will actually know the person, Sonu Verghese, and know what I need, and thereby give me the experience right up to the retail or hospitality, or maybe my needs on maybe movement within the airport. And that's where a passenger integration systems is the future of how things are being thought about. The next interesting thing is a very new evolvement around passenger experience. That's called parallel reality. I'm sure as all of us have experienced traveling to an airport, you'd be staring at this huge displays with you figuring out which is your flight, which is your gate that you need to go and hit as a part of being a passenger. That's about to change. With kind of augmented and mixed reality, the new era is about giving a parallel reality experience to a passenger with augmentation of the persona of the person. So imagine it's the same screen and two people staring at the same screen, and each of them will see a different message. Each message will tell about the boarding gate and the flight that you're boarding, right? That's the future of how parallel reality will be now working in a public space environment. The next one is around frictionless security. And imagine today you get frisked as you pass through the airport. The frictionless security is about non-intrusive security introspection. So how can you have sensor-based technology to actually screen you as a passenger, your bags, and thereby avoid taking off your jackets, taking off your bags, taking off your laptops, and have a very seamless experience with frictionless security. And that's probably the future in the next decade of how things will evolve around the security. Obviously, this needs a lot of interactions with regulators, with BCAS and other elements, so that this is a national security concern. The next big thing is around use of blockchain technology for a passenger digital identity. Now, imagine a traveler who is actually going to travel globes. And now, how can you have an experience of a passenger as he travels the globe to have a personal identity on his mobile phone, which is secured on blockchain technology, approved by the respective governments. And through that identity, he can actually traverse different airports to different locations. And that's going to be really a non-intuitive mechanism with digital intervention to get him that experience across traveling multiple countries and cities with a digital identity that he carries in his pocket. The next big thing is around interconnected airport system. As we all know, the 5G innovation that's coming in with Edge and IoT, how can you have multiple ecosystem interconnected? And with that interconnections, it's about giving a very seamless operational benefit to the airport operators. And with that, obviously deliver better insight for airlines and for passengers to traverse from entry to exit. In fact, to getting your taxi booked, in fact, getting to a hotel that you want to stay in, and that entire experience can be delivered through 5G technology by connecting passengers across the board. Also, what we really need to solve in the near future is about a private LTE network, which is largely on the air side operations. Today, the airside operation is really restrictive in terms of a public network. And that's where 5G and other technologies will really play a role with a private LTE network. So you have multiple interconnected systems with a common network backbone to connect multiple systems and deliver that experience. The last being an intelligent airport. Intelligent airport of the future should ideally be working on its own with limited operations interfaces. So imagine a very lame example, but a bad urinal where one of the sensors will kind of take that feedback through an autonomous system to actually go and direct a housekeeping action to clean up the urinal. Or maybe there's a delayed airline with a capacity enhancement and the systems within the airport and the interfaces with the airlines will actually thereby add more capacity on the counters to thereby get a seamless access for passengers with additional capacity. That is going to be autonomous and the real probably 2-decade-old future for all the airports to really work. And that's the intelligent airport with mobility of your choice and to help you actually deliver better experience. So in summary, as the future passenger becomes more digital in nature, the airports, the airlines, and the government agencies will really have to come together, create a common network, a common backbone for all the systems to work together with a common pool of data sets. So by giving the experience of a digital travel to the same passenger. So with that in the as a note on my initial speak, I would now like to request George Phantom, who is a CIO for Bangalore International Airport and our esteemed customer on the dais. Welcome, George. Thank you. So George is a transformational IT and digital leader, which comes with a very rich pedigree of multiple experiences across multiple sectors. And in the last couple of years, he has been very active in the aviation side of the business. And we thought it's the right perspective to get his insights with the airport of the future and how Bangalore Airport, with the latest inauguration around the T2 terminal, we'll get the right insights from George. So George has been really helping advance the travel and solving a lot of major challenges around airport operations. It's a very complex environment with multiple ecosystems. We're talking of 20, 30,000 touch points, unlike a small enterprise in one building block, right? It's a very large city with multiple moving parts. And we'd like him to share some of his insights, which can also be taken by all of our esteemed guests, so that you can apply in your own organization. So George, welcome and thanks to be on the stage with us.
Yeah, I think now it's on. Thank you, Sonu. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor, privilege to be here with you on stage at the Bangalore Tech Summit. I've been looking forward to our chat and sharing some thoughts with the audience. Thank you.
So John, let's, I think this apt to start off with your role in Bangalore Airport. And I think most people will like to really understand that in your role as a CIO of Bangalore Airport, how is it different from any other enterprise roles, whether it is your past experience as a telecom CIO? So what is really the core element of the CIO of an airport?
So Sonu, in a lot of ways, you know, it's the same as any other. It's after all technology, isn't it? But in a lot more ways, it's quite unique and different, like you have been highlighting as well, right? So in my 30-plus years career across multiple industries, from manufacturing, financial services, telecom, minerals, mining, oil and gas, and now airports, right? One thing which I have been always passionate about is applying technology to solve business problem and create business value, right? And so that theme continues across all, right? So that is what has taken me across different industries. But when I come to the airport side of it, the key difference is the magnitude of the stakeholders and customers that you have to deal with. So in manufacturing, you'll have one set of customers. In telecom, you know, it's a lot of virtual services that you're delivering. Here you have a phygital kind of experience. The airport is a physical entity. Our customers are right there. You can reach up and touch them, experience them. The technology they are using is firsthand to enable their journeys, right? And along with that, as you had mentioned earlier, there are a lot of entities with government entities, security entities, retail, F&B. It's becoming like more and more like an experience center, like a mini mall. So all those aspects come into it. So I think that's a key differentiator as I look at airports. And more people are traveling. Travel is just exploding. This is becoming a portal to the world. Bangalore Airport purports to be the new gateway to India, right? So all those elements will put a lot of focus on technology and how we can bring it to bear to create new experiences for our customers.
Wonderful. That really makes sense, George. Now, who is really your customer? Like in an enterprise world, we know who our customers are. When it comes to Bangalore Airport, what do you really coach and guide your technology team as who is your customer? Is it the passenger? Is it your internal stakeholders? Whom do you really serve?
So it's all of those and more. So in a way, I look at it in three bubbles. One you said, which most of us from in a CIO world are familiar with, is the internal employees and stakeholders. So they have a set of needs, and you need to enable them and the work that they are doing, be it email systems, connectivity, ERP, security, all those kind of things that you have to look at. So they have a set of team which looks at all of that. Second thing is the more obvious one, which is my passengers using the airports, traveling, the people who are directly traveling, and the people who are coming to pick them up, drop them off, receive them. You see families in India, especially, so all of them become customers. Third largest, which is a little more hidden and something which is very unique to airports, is the huge ecosystem which goes to servicing and creating those services. Airlines, ground handling staff, air traffic control, CISF for security. They are the the all the retailers, the food and beverage, the government entities and agencies, and more. So all of this continues constitutes the set of customers that we need to deal with. And as you were mentioning in your opening remarks, an airport is almost like a mini city. So you have the smart city elements also that come into play. So all of these things you have to take care of when you're looking at an airport ecosystem.
Sure. Just on the side note, George, when we signed up the contract with BIAL, I thought I'm signing for one customer. And when we end up delivering for BIAL, we realized there are 20 customers in Bangalore Airport. So thanks. I think that really makes sense of what you really spoke about. Now, in terms of, before we get to the stage of what are real innovative projects that you're really staring at or undertaken at Bangalore Airport, can you just throw some light on what is really keeping you up at night, or what is the real top programs that you're making for the passenger and the city from Bangalore Airport lens?
Great question. So, yeah, what's keeping me up at night? Unlike my previous avatars and roles I've had in the past, it's more about excitement than anxiety. It's the excitement of making an impact and having the opportunity to drive change. Really, Bangalore Airport has always been known as a digital leader in the aviation space in India and also abroad. And we kind of have pioneered and been a path breaker in a lot of sense. You spoke about Digi Yatra. This was conceived at Bangalore Airport maybe 3 or 4 years ago as a seamless way of travel on enhancing passenger travel, where your biometric, your face, your hand. We were thinking in earlier days about fingerprint, but it evolved to be the face, which has become kind of your passport to the rest of the world, right? So that was piloted at Bangalore Airport, and now that has been adopted as a national initiative, where and we are trying to take it around the world as a seamless blockchain-enabled digital identity which you can travel with. So that has been rolled out at Bangalore Airport, and we are live with that. So that has been a great example of what innovative we do. Second thing is. Recently, I think we are the first airport in India, at least, if not the whole world, to move to a completely software-defined network architecture, SDA. So we have rolled that out. Entire campus, we had 5 air-gapped networks earlier. A little behind the scene kind of work, but very important in a number of ways. And we are now completely on a Cisco SDA. So I think that was the first thing, first time that has been done. Then the whole seamless travel when COVID hit, how do you handle and make it all touchless and react very quickly? So there was a whole bunch of things that we had to do, from scanning documents to remote help desks and things like that, where you have interactive help desks which were all taken remote. So all that was done. All the self check-in systems, the passenger boarding systems. So there's a lot of technology which enables a journey. So all this has been done. Now we are working on something you referred to, really a smart digital assistant in the form of an app, which is going to know you very intimately, and before you even think about traveling, right? It knows you want there's a deal for you and manages your ticket booking, your check-in, your whole journey, travel, packing, which gate to go to, virtual queuing. So it is going to be, we have rolled it out and the features keep coming out every 2 weeks. So that's a very innovative. Every airport has an app, but it's hardly used. So here we are trying to see how can it really help and enable a passenger's journey. It's very stressful for everybody, especially those who are not frequent travelers. So we are trying to eliminate all those stress points for the traveler. So that has been something new that we are working on. And of course, let me not forget, as an airport, I think we are one of the few airports who have partnered and outsourced as a strategic partnership all our IT and development to Kyndryl, right, to have one IT company to help us so that we can focus more on the forward-looking stuff. So thank you for the great partnership and helping us run the airport so we can think in a little more forward-looking.
Yeah, thanks a lot for George. I think the Digi was on 15th, the inauguration of the Go Live.
Yeah, 15th August with the Azadi Ka Mahotsav.
Yeah.
So that was launched nationally on that date. You are right, absolutely.
Absolutely, I think that's the top, flag bearer as initiative that was taken really by Bangalore Airport, all airports, and I think something which we should all be proud about as Bangaloreans and Bangalore City. Sorry, John.
Yeah, and one more thing which I shouldn't forget, in terms of innovation, we've also launched Bangalore Airport in the metaverse. So that has been the first that you can go and experience our new terminal in the metaverse as well. So please do go and experience that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you for that appreciation.
Thanks a lot. George, when it comes to airport security is paradigm, it's a national asset. While BIAL is the operator for the airport, it's a national asset. What is your 2 cents on security and risk mitigation around airport infrastructure? And what is Bangalore Airport really doing about?
You're right, Sonu. I mean, airports are critical infrastructure for the country, and we have to look at it from multiple ways, from physical security to cyber security and digital security that we look at, right? So, and technology plays a role in every aspect of that. In physical security, it's all the scanning systems that you put in. We are introducing now 3D scanning, which you mentioned, where you hopefully, if you're working with our partners with the CISF and BCAS and all, hopefully you will come to a point very soon where you won't have to take out your laptops and your electronics from your bags and all, right? We are doing whole body scanning that we are piloting right now, where you won't have to be frisked and take off your jackets and things like that.
I will miss the massage.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there is perimeter intrusion detection system. So there's a whole bunch of things. CCTV cameras. We are deploying a lot of analytics, AI, computer vision. There are a host of use cases that are getting deployed in maintaining the physical security. When it comes to digital security, the threat attack, the footprint is just increasing every month, especially in the last few months after the Ukraine war, and we are seeing a lot of state actors who are coming in and trying to probe. So there are a lot of attempted attacks and hacks that are happening, and we have a multi-layer security. Some of which I can talk about, some of it for obvious reasons I may not be able to share. But we need to protect our assets, and we are also got a key partner like you who helps us maintain all the latest patches, updates, security, endpoints that we need to deploy. Plus, we are getting another partner who will help us monitor all the outputs, because there's a host of intelligence which will come out of it, and you need to look at all the data and the intelligence, make intelligence out of it to say what all is happening and how do you really protect the asset. So it has to be done on multiple layers, from physical to digital. And OT is another big part of it, which is gaining prominence across all industries, manufacturing and airports as well. So multiple things that we need to do, and we continue to do that.
So I think an interesting point on that, I think, which we have seen uniquely that Bangalore Airport also is driving is how do you drive the CCTV, which is a physical security, to also drive certain business use cases, queue management. I think that's very innovative work that really BLR Airport is.
You're right. So, as part of our security deployment, we have hundreds and thousands of cameras in the airport, which are required absolutely. So we are taking those feeds and we have got some multicast capabilities that we have just deployed. And we are seeing what else can we do about it. And one of the use cases you mentioned is queue management, to see if there are queues building up, do we open more check-in counters, do we open more security lanes? So how do we reduce that friction for that passenger?
Yeah.
Correct. You're right. So you need to deploy some intelligence around it and say, and partner with the airlines, with the CISF guys. You are absolutely right, and give them a heads up as well and say, look, guys, the queues are building up. It's bad for you. It's bad for us. So they also want to know, and if they've gone on a break, to guys and bring them back and say, no, let's start opening this counter because there's something going wrong. So you're right, absolutely, and that's what I mentioned. It's a whole ecosystem that you need to work with and partner with, and you have to bring those elements all together. So computer vision and camera, CCTVs and all help us do that. There are lots of operational use cases which happen. Maybe one of our conveyor belts has gone down, so you can get a computer feed, you can get IoT feeds, other feeds and all also as well. And saying, look, there is a operator who is not following SOPs. So you use intelligence analytics. If there is somebody who's collapsed because of some heat exhaustion or hydration, you immediately get an alert. So we're building up all these use cases and seeing how can we become more proactive and how can we make travel a little more smoother and seamless and frictionless for our passengers and our stakeholders.
George,
Mr. Varghese, I thought you were speaking about future technology of aviation. Now we are talking about airports. Even for airports, I have a question.
Sorry,
Why
sir,
can't
could
you
you
have-
repeat your question? I'm not able to
Yeah.
hear you.
No, I'm telling Varghese, I thought you would speak about future tech for aviation. Now we are talking about airports. Anyway, even for this, I have one small question. Why can't I have a voice recognized answers at the airport? I'm sitting in the somewhere near Frankfurt airport. I want to go to New York, and where to ask? How to see the board, or how to see my ticket, which is in the bag. Why can't I have answer questions on my phone orally? Understood? Or any problem? Voice recognized answers for my question at the airport. Voice recognition
assistance at the
answers to my question. on
Voice
some-
assistance
yeah,
at the airport.
Voice assistant. Yeah, you're right.
Right. Sure. So yeah, voice-based recognition is what you are probably trying to ask about. Yeah. We are trying to move towards more biometric. That's one of the biometrics that we can use to see as you come in, how do we recognize you? And without you having to take out paperwork and having to show some paper and scan some things, how do we do that? And that's part of our Digi Yatra initiative, sir. So if you experience that, you can download the app and register yourself and upload your biometrics on that. We are starting with the facial biometrics so that you don't even need to speak as we see you approaching, because the airports can get noisy on the curbside, outside and all. So getting separation, the voice and all gets a little tricky. But then, you can use your face and recognize you and say, yes, Mr. Sinha has got a flight in 2 hours. So we open the gates and we allow you in. And as you approach security, we know that what is your passenger profile, what flights you're on. So we are enabling all of that through our Digi Yatra initiative, sir.
Yeah, we'll just take questions if you don't mind. Sorry.
We travel 2 hours to reach airport. We travel 2 hours to reach airport and 3 hours early to check in, and it makes 5 hours. That is why that way we can reach Chennai by if you are going by taxi. So are you trying to reduce the time from 3 hours to say 1 hour or something like that?
we would all love to have that situation, and absolutely we'll trying to do whatever we can to reduce that. That's a big stress point, like you mentioned, right? Or am I going to be in time? Will I mix my flight? Will my bag get checked in and all? So we are trying to see how we can reduce that. It's again a collaboration with multiple forces, right? Multiple stakeholders, agencies. The airlines are involved. The security, CISF is involved. There are some rules, regulations which are from DGC and BCAS which are involved, that you have to close the gate before so much of time. All your checked-in baggage has to be scanned. All those things take time, and then the queues and all that build up. So that's where we are trying to deploy technologies and say, how do we reduce and make it a little more frictionless, right? Will it come down to, let's say 30 minutes, 1 hour? I'm not sure. Can it be better than the 3 hours, 5 hours today? Absolutely. Right? And we are trying our utmost to do what we can. And that's what the new terminal is also about. We are increasing capacities, at least in Bangalore airport, so that there is more check-in counters, there are more security lanes, so that we can all go through faster. But the faster we run, the traffic growth is even faster than that. So it's a tough thing to catch up and keep up with. Right? So, but yes, it's a pain we all face, and we are trying our best to address that.
Yeah, sure. So, George, the last question I had was, I think we had a grand opening of T2, right? And Shri Narendra Modi was here for the grand opening. It is something which has caught the eye of everybody, including Bangaloreans and India and the world over. It is built on the principle, four real guiding principles on the design: gardens, sustainability, technology, and art and culture. Can you just throw some highlights on what are the top technology interventions from a Bangalore airport T2 terminal standpoint?
Thank you, Sonu. Yes, we were very fortunate to have our Honorable Prime Minister to come and inaugurate the new terminal T2 along with our Chief Minister. And we were very proud to have the opportunity to build and create that on behalf of Bengaluru and Bengaluru city, because it's all our terminal, right? And we are all very proud of the whole collaboration. There are thousands of people who worked on it to make it possible. And you're right, technology was one of the pillars on this, right? I spoke about some of the technologies about DigiYatra, check-in, Qt, and all check-in systems, self-check-in systems, and all CCTV systems. But some of the additionally new things we did, it's the first terminal to be fully 5G enabled. So inside the terminal as you enter, I think first time in India at least, it is fully 5G enabled. That is one of the new things that we have launched. The whole concept of T2 has been a terminal in a garden. Bengaluru is a garden city. So we adopted that philosophy and said, why don't we build a terminal in the garden city, right? It's in the terminal for the garden city. So we built it inside the garden. So first we built gardens around and designed the whole garden. And then we built how do we fit in all the passenger processing systems around that. Now we have got more than 3,000 species of plants and not animals, plants, hopefully not animals, but plants in there. A whole biodiversity park has been created. Now, to keep all that going and alive and thriving, there's a lot of technology, IoT sensors which have been embedded, which monitor the temperature, the hydration, the nutrition of each and every one of those plants, and automatically provides whatever nutrition, hydration, temperature which is required. So all that goes behind the scenes, and when you get a chance to use the terminal, you'll see that. Another thing is on terms of voice assist, we spoke about a little bit. For the hearing, challenged, who are using hearing devices and all, right? It can get very difficult to, among all the conversations which are happening, to hear if there is a flight announcement, change of gate or something happening. So we have embedded induction coils in the floor, which will carry these messages directly to your hearing aids or devices, implants and all. Right? So you'll get the specific announcement coming to you directly without having to struggle for it. So that has been a new thing that we have deployed. And like that, there's new scanning technology, that is body scanners I spoke about, baggage scanners that I spoke about. So all those are getting deployed. So these are all first time which are being presented to you in the new terminal.
Absolutely. I had the honor to be a part of the inauguration, and it's really wonderful. And congratulations to the entire Bangalore Airport team. So I think, George, thanks a lot for your time. for this session, and thanks to everybody. We'll open up for Q&A and any questions that any of you folks have.
Thank you, Sonu. Wonderful being here and having this fireside chat with you. Yes, sir.
Hi. See, there are quite a few prick points in any airport. Very specific to Bangalore, I would say, you have so many aero bridges, but unlike other cities like Bombay, Chennai, Delhi, most of the aero bridges are not used. Invariably, all the flights are kept out, and thousands of passengers are being carried by buses. Why? It doesn't make sense. And that is also when all the aero bridges are more or less empty. If they were full, then yes, the overflow is right on the apron. I do not understand this, and this has been going on for quite a few years. I'll ask you something else later, if you
Sure.
can.
No, that's a brilliant question and something that puzzled me for a long while.
And
as
most
well.
people have not been noticing this also.
No, I noticed it, I can assure you, because as a passenger, I used to notice as a technocrat, technologist, I used to come to Bangalore as anybody would in India. And any airport you see, it's not just in Bangalore, you'll see
Yeah.
that, you get pushed off to a bus stand and you disembark from a nice flight and then queue up to board a bus and then maybe spend 20 minutes around going round and round. So I asked my operations people the same thing and said, why don't you just give an aircraft? So it's two things which one. So these are all slots which are programmed and assigned well in advance, because once an aircraft comes, it takes about 1.5 hours minimum in most cases to what is called turn the aircraft around. So once an aircraft comes, so that aero bridge is blocked for at least 2 hours, 3 hours. So that planning has gone as to which flight will come. And then the airlines also choose, right, as to whether they want an air stand or they want a contact stand or not. What happens in a remote stand, you can disembark sometimes with 2 ladders, whereas with most aero bridges, it's 1 ladder, 1 gate only. So there are multiple factors which go into it, right?
But all said and done, it's very inefficient, lot of wastage of time, energy, adds to everything, and delays for passengers, in addition to the amount of time we have to return home.
Commute and all that, I understand.
All kinds of things.
So again, multiple stakeholders
And I don't know how
involved.
other cities are handling. Maybe you can emulate those models.
Same. Before I joined Bengaluru, I was handling Delhi, Hyderabad. I was group CIO with GMR. We were operating 8 airports there globally. Similar situation exists in most airports. So we would love to have, and in Delhi you have many more contact stands than we have here.
Couple of other points I have. One is very important. At the security, a lot of times, many things are being taken away and thrown away. And some of them prop up new things. I've taken in rail, after when we are going by train, there's a chain we tie with the baggage. Last time I was at the airport, they threw away the chain, and I had a lot of train travel later on. They said this is a new thing. So many such things, they may not be of monetary value, but then they are of usefulness value. So such things can be returned to passengers when they come back. The willingness has to be there. It's very much doable.
Yeah, so
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. So we'll be taking this question a little later. Thank you. Can you just pass on? Is anyone else there?
George is leading the overall airport operations and management and futuristic technologies. I think let's stick to those type of questions. I'm sure you will appreciate his time to have taken and come over here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bala. So while we say that, sir, there is always, and for others also who have suggestion and pain points, please do give the feedback on our websites. And if you're traveling enough feedback boxes, we take and address each one of them very seriously. So we'll make sure we answer back to you. Sorry, I didn't understand.
We should connect them with the offline, so we'll be closing the session now. Thank you. Thank you to all of the speakers here. I would like to call upon Ma'am Vijay Lakshmi Ma'am on the stage from KIPS,
Thank
the
you very
government of
much.
Karnataka,
Thank you, everyone.
to give the memento. Mr. Sonu Varghese, sir, Mr. George Van Home, Mr. George Van Home, CIO, Bangalore International Airport Limited. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Mr. Sonu Varghese, sir, the partner. Thank you so much for your words and information. Thank you.